Local Government Code 551. Meeting's been posted in the lobby here and outside. So this time, Ms. Lawson, will you call for a quorum?
Sean?
Here.
Saxon?
Here.
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Mark?
Here. We've established a quorum. This meeting is official. And at this time, we will ask Chief Watson to lead us in a word of invocation, please, and stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this day that you've given, and for all the people that are here in service to the community and in interest of the services that are provided to the community. Lord, we just ask that you would bestow on the governing body here and on the citizens here spirit of cooperation and to truly determine what is the best course of action going forward. And we thank you for the freedom that we enjoy in this country to have the We the People process that we're going through today. In Jesus' name. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here today, and we will get started with public comments shortly. Does anybody need to turn in another form? Okay, I have a few up here. So at this time, I would like to ask Chief Watson to give a presentation before we start the public hearing or the comments. And 10:03, we're in public hearing.
All right, good morning. My name is Stephen Watson. I'm the fire chief here for Parker County ESD 1, and we prepared a presentation just to provide some education on what got us here today, a little bit about what an ESD is, how the governance is structured, how we're funded, and a little bit about who we are as ESD 1. So I'll try to go through this fairly briefly and not take up too much of your time. So a little bit about the process to annex into an ESD. There's a petition, public hearing, which we're at today, and then a potential election on November 4th if an election is ordered by the district. So there was a petition that was submitted to the district. There was 69 petitioners from within the city of Reno that brought forth a petition requesting inclusion or expansion of ESD 1 into the area known as the city of Reno. So that petition was validated. The statute requires that there's at least 50 qualified petitioners. What qualifies a petitioner is to be registered to vote in the state and to own taxable property within the area to be annexed. So that petition was validated and it exceeded the required amount of 50. So statutorily, the board at that point is required to call a hearing, which they did, and give proper notice, which occurred, and that's why we're here today. Because folks within the community petitioned for the district to expand its territory to include Reno. This is the exhibit that was included with the petition, which is a map of the city of Reno itself. We've received some citizen comments via email referring to this being a hostile takeover. So that's why I again point this out to you is that this whole process to get here requires that people who own taxable property and are registered to vote petition for inclusion into the district. So again, that is how we got here today. Of course, we're at the public hearing. Notice was published in the newspapers, posted at Reno City Hall and in areas with our district. If it goes on the ballot, that would be, I believe, on November 4th is the general election day. There would be a proposition to join the district on the ballot, a proposition regarding debt, whether or not funds from funds in the city of Reno could be used to service existing debt for the district. Those are two separate propositions. And then for voters that live within the current areas of ESD one, they would have a proposition whether to accept the area into the district or not. So what is an emergency services district? We're a political subdivision of the state. Our authorizing statute is chapter 775. If you get really bored or need something to help you fall asleep, you can look it up and read it in the Health and Safety Code. And in Texas, over the years, ESDs were created in the 90s, and they've become kind of the solution for regional and suburban funding of public safety. If you follow the Texas Triangle, which is the I-35, 45, I-10 corridor, there's a lot of ESDs along that triangle, if you will, and that's also where about 70% of the population of the state of Texas is. Roughly 1 in 3 Texans are protected by an emergency services district. And there's now somewhere around 400 ESDs in Texas. Why an ESD? They were originally created as rural fire prevention districts in the law, and then converted, I believe it was in the legislative session in 2001 or 2003 that actually converted all the rural fire prevention districts to ESDs. It creates a funding method where there's no statutory requirement for fire protection, that being that counties aren't mandated to provide funding for fire protection. In many cases, some do, although that's often inadequate, and that's where ESDs have come into play. It's also become a regional model, especially in Parker County, but in other counties around the state, where you have regional growth in a community. You may have a city, you may have a mud district, you may have unincorporated growth in the county. Everyone pays into the same pot, if you will, and services are provided on a regional scale. Recent legislative reform with municipal annexation has amplified the feasibility of ESDs because there's so much growth in Texas that's happening outside of municipal territory. And then it brings a regional efficiency and economy of scale to the table in that there's not duplication of resources or administrative overhead in one small community next to another one, and then county areas and the like. So it creates the opportunity for a regional approach to emergency services. ESDs are funded primarily through 2 methods. One is an ad valorem property tax rate, the other is a sales tax rate where local sales tax is available. Across this state, the state gets a 6.25% sales tax, and there's a 2% rate that's available to local jurisdictions. In Parker County, the county of Parker has a 1/2 cent local rate, and then there's a 1.5 cents typically available to local jurisdictions. So in the case of Parker County ESD 1, we have an ad valorem rate, it's at 10 cents, and then we have up to a 1.5 cent sales tax rate depending on what area of the district you're in. In most of our municipalities, that local rate was already exhausted. So the 1.5 cent rate applies primarily to unincorporated areas. And I guess it's important to note that if an area, especially a municipality, comes into the district, whatever sales tax rate was already there is what stays there. So it would not take the place of the local sales tax rate that's already in place. Within our 10 cent per 100 tax rate, we're constitutionally capped at that rate. ESDs across the state are. So interest in sinking and maintenance and operations funds are all contained within that 10 cent rate. So any debt that is incurred also has to be serviced within that total 10 cent rate. How does representation and taxation work? That's covered again in chapter 775, a 5-member board, which you see here. They serve 2-year terms, alternating terms, so there's each year 2 or 3 board members their terms are up and they can be reappointed or replaced. They're appointed by the County Commissioners Court. To be an ESD commissioner, you have to be a citizen of the state, registered to vote in the state, and own taxable property within the district. And the statute also gives wording or language to the County Commissioners Court should give consideration to commissioner appointments relating to their knowledge of public safety. I think it's actually worded fire prevention, but the intent of the statute there, I think, is that people appointed to this board should have some idea of emergency services. about us. Who are we and why are we here? We currently serve several communities across Parker County. Our area is about 320 square miles, ranging from Beester Poolville through Springtown, around Reno and Azle, all the way down through Alito, Willow Park, and down to Highway 377. And there's various pictures you see here of our firefighters, our administrative staff, our board members, and so on. A lot of different people that make up our organization. A little bit of history about us. ESD 1 was originally formed as a rural fire prevention district in 1998. There was an election in 2001 to convert from an RFPD to an emergency services district. We've undergone 7 annexations since then. It originally started with just the Springtown area, and over time, there's 6 different ESDs in Parker County, and over time, some communities chose to start their own where that was feasible, and other communities sought to join the regional model that ESD 1 has become, that what made it the regional model that it is. And we had a series of sales tax elections between 2017 and 2021 to get our sales tax rate to where it is. The first fire chief was hired back in 2007. First 4 paid firefighters were hired in 2009. We began our support services program in 2012. So we have a fleet shop with 3 mechanics on duty, and started staffing around the clock in 2015 with 2 firefighters per fire truck. We started phasing that into our different stations over time. In 2016, we started running the Parker County Fire Alarm Office. Completed a master plan in 2020. We've recently co-located EMS or ambulance units in a couple of our fire stations, as well as we've combined the fire and EMS dispatch center into one comm center. And we opened our 8th station and staffed our 2nd battalion just recently in 2024. We serve roughly, it's really hard to figure out exactly what the population of a county or unincorporated areas are, but based on registered voters, property, appraisal district records, and census records, like 2.7 people per household, we're roughly 80 to 85,000 residents across the district that we protect. We staff 7 engines of truck, 2 tankers staffed, 5 tankers available, and 2 rescues, 14 brush trucks, and 2 battalions. We have 5 reserve engines and 2 reserve brush trucks, so that when vehicles are out for maintenance or repair, we have something to put in their place. It's an example of one of the 2 new fire stations that we built in Beester and Poolville last year. And this is a map of Parker County's ESD boundaries, the different ESDs that are currently in Parker County. I apologize if the screen's not big enough. So everything that you see in green is ESD 1. The other colors are the other ESDs in the county. And then the gray areas are the municipal territories that are not in any ESDs. So you can see Reno kind of up at the top right there. Our mission statement is simply to passionately protect the lives and property of our citizens through training, preparedness, dedication, professionalism, and integrity. So bottom line, when any fire department is here, we're here to protect life and property, and we take that very seriously. The kiddo on the bottom left there was one of our recent CPR saves, that call that we worked with Hospital District EMS, and then in the middle there is a family in 2018 that was rescued from a fire back here off Colina Drive. One of the things that our staffing model that we began to implement has changed, as we've always had, as far back as we have records, we've had 1 or more civilian fire deaths every year or somewhere in the district. In 2018, we actually changed that metric to 4 successful rescues and no civilian fire deaths. Since 2018, we've had 5 other successful rescues. We've also had a few fatalities over the years as well. We're not always in control of when we're notified of an incident, but it's our job to give the citizens that we serve the best chance at surviving whatever it is that they're going through. We've adopted our principles and core values of our organization that, our primary mission is to protect life and property, and so that is our first and foremost focus in everything that we do with every member of the district, whether it's an employee or a volunteer. We train to be aggressive, but intelligently aggressive. In the county area, we don't have the luxury of urban